to info warriors and all of us who fight for liberty is that in the last even just 5 years, there seems to be an acceleration, just the outright criminality, thuggishness of government, not just federal, but I mean at local levels too. Look at California, look at Chicago. Well, I guess Chicago's always been steeped in corruption and criminality, but is it really getting worse in your opinion?
Well, yes, it is, because I think there's almost a mathematical relationship here. This is a social event happening, but I think there's a lot of mathematics in it, in the sense that the reason that all governments eventually evolve into criminal syndicates is because we give them power, and power is a magnet. Power is a magnet that attracts the criminal mentality, the predator class. And so the more power we give to government, the more inevitable it becomes that magnet gets stronger and it attracts more and more of the predator class. And finally, we just have basically a government that we thought was of the people gradually evolved into a criminal syndicate. So, yes, there's a mathematical relationship. The more power we give to government, the more we create a criminal environment.
Well, yeah, look at the UN, where you have total diplomatic immunity. So anywhere that you have total immunity, you get complete and utter corruption.
Of course.
Runaway criminality.
Yeah, that's it. So once people connect the dots and realize that there's a cause for this criminality, it's not just because, it happened that way. There's a cause. It's that relationship between the power that we tolerate government having. In fact, we often become, when I say we, I mean the people in general, not you and me, of course, but in general, the population has been conditioned to think that no matter what problems we have in society, the solution is to give more power to the government. And so we create this environment. We are creating ourselves, creating this magnet for the criminal class.
Well, what do you think about the gun confiscation issue? I don't know if you heard the last segment, but it's rising up again because of this UN treaty being negotiated that would potentially, I mean, this was written up right in Forbes magazine, in fact, which typically doesn't reveal this much information about what's really going on, but it could potentially result in gun registration, confiscation of legal firearms, basically a total disarmament of the U.S. population. Of course, they deny that that's what the treaty would do, but if you read between the lines, that's what it actually could do. What are your thoughts on that issue, Ed Griffin?
Well, that pretty well summarizes it. They do deny it. They always deny the negative consequences of their programs. They like to talk about their other measures in glowing terms. I mean, this. They don't call it gun confiscation or gun control. You know, they call it disarmament, reducing crime, and they like put things like crime reduction program and that kind of thing.
Well, of course, but of course, the greatest armed criminals, I should say, the most severe, the worst armed criminals are the government themselves. Just look at history, look at democide figures of death by government. So what the mainstream people are missing is that it's not gun disarmament. It is a movement of all firearms out of the hands of law-abiding citizens into the hands of the most centralized, corrupt, power-hungry groups of all, which is government. That's the thing. That's the message that doesn't get through to people for some reason.
Yeah, because the media and the confiscators are always talking about criminals. They're always talking about taking guns away from criminals and, reducing accidental deaths and injuries. That's the total focus. That's the limits of the debate. No one's allowed to discuss the real purpose of the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment was not added to the Constitution by our forefathers to protect the citizens against crime. It was added there for one purpose, and that's to protect them from totalitarian governments.
Yes.
Their own governments. They were leery that their own government might someday become tyrannical, and so therefore they said the people must be armed so that the people will have the ultimate control over their own government. Well, who talks about that today?
Well, maybe we should support disarmament of the government. I mean, we should put, hey, I'd feel a lot safer with firearms in the hands of sheriffs and sheriff's deputies all across the country and not in the hands of, let's say, some renegade ATF agents. Not that they're all bad, but there are a lot of renegade ATF agents out there. But how about this? Are you willing to take a call from a police officer who's on the line?
Why, sure.
All right, let's go to James in Tennessee, law enforcement. James, you're on the air here with Mike Adams and Ed Griffin. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. How are y'all doing today?
Doing good. What's on your mind?
Well, you made a statement earlier about all police officers not being bad, and I think that's pretty much common knowledge. There should be anyway. Mr. Griffin knows that. I happen to have been in for a little while. I'm not as old as some of the guys that I work with. But most of your younger guys are the ones that are coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan that are coming into the police forces and the sheriff's departments. You know, they have programmed these guys, and not all of them, but I've run into a few, and you know, I was saying that some people just can't be reached. They've effectively walled them off, and that will be one of the biggest threats that I see.
So what are you saying, that they come back with a mindset of just do anything and kill, and it's like they can't think for themselves, or what exactly? How does that look to you when you see these guys?
Well, you know, it's really weird because, you know, being raised in a law enforcement / military family, so to speak, over the years, you see these guys and you think, you know, when I got into the business, it was God, family, country, or God, country, family, and that kind of thing. You want to do good by your fellow citizens and your brothers and sisters, and that seems to be missing. That seems to be the element that's missing, is just a compassion. You know, they've been desensitized, I guess you might say, to killing.
Yeah,
to kill. And not that they're all running around saying that, but you can pick up on those little nuances when you get into certain situations. You know, they may be a little quicker to shoot than, you know, use the 40 cal they got on their hip instead of the taser or something of that nature. I've seen it in different places, not just where I'm at, different places.
Okay, good points, James. Thank you for your call. Ed, your comments on that caller.
Well, yes, that's been my observation, too. Of course, I was in the military. Fortunately, I was never called upon to go into actual combat, but I was kind of braced for it. And I can recall at the time that I had actually gone through basic training to condition my mind to follow orders, not to question anything. And, of course, that's necessary in any military. I realized that. But I was prepared that if somebody said, see that group over there, that's the enemy, go kill them. I was prepared to say, well, if my officers said that's the enemy and my orders are to go kill the enemy, that's the patriotic thing to do because I'm fighting for my country and my family and everything. But I was prepared to actually do that. Of course, I didn't know nothing, as they say, at the time of what really was going on in the world. I was there because I love my country, and that was the patriotic thing to do. And but now, in retrospect, as I'm a lot older, and I've seen that there are hidden agendas quite often behind wars, and even hidden agendas behind local police actions.
Sure.
There are sometimes hidden agendas down at the local police and sheriff level, too.
Well, Ed, let me ask you this question. What about the pharmaceutical influence on these young minds? Because this is the first generation of soldiers that is actually deployed with mandatory mind-altering drugs. And I know you're well-versed on big pharma and the cancer cover-ups, the cancer industry, corruption, things like that. Do you think that their minds are being rewired, literally, with the chemicals that they're now being given on deployment?
Well, I don't think there's any question about that. I think it's just an extension of the mind conditioning that was done through training. In the old days, it was just done through exposure, training, repetition, and mental programs, educational programs, whatever you want to call them. But now they've added the element of drugs themselves. And gosh, it's a frightening thing because I know that most of these shootings that we find in schools, they're done by kids that have been given these
SSRIs and antidepressants.
Right,
yeah,
they're all supposedly attention deficit disorder kids or something like that, and this just blows their minds. It pushes them over the edge into either suicidal or homicidal.
Well, it's not unusual today for a soldier to be on 6 different pharmaceuticals during active duty, and you notice sometimes when they go crazy and they kill a bunch of civilians out there in a local village, those people are almost always on psychotropic drugs, and usually sometimes half a dozen, like a chemical cocktail. But you got to think maybe they come back and they are so detached that they can't even see what they're doing to their own brothers and sisters, their own neighbors in their own country anymore.
Right.
that
their mind, they're incapable of coming to judgment, independent judgment, and they've been trained to do that. They've been conditioned to do that, and I fear those people, but I also feel sorry for them.
Sure.
Nevertheless, if they're ordered to come over and pick you and me up and throw us in the truck take us out wherever we have to go and eliminate us, that's what they would do.
They would absolutely do that. Let's go to another caller who's on the line, and I'll ask for your comments. Ed, Tango from Georgia, U.S. Army is the designation I'm getting here. Tango, go ahead, please. You're on the show. What's on your mind?
Well, thanks for taking my call, first of all. One thing I did want to touch on real quick is sort of on subject. When you join any military service in this country, you take an oath, and it's an oath that I think these kids nowadays need to remember. You take an oath to protect the people of the United States and the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that's something that I take very seriously. When I was, first in, it really didn't hit me as hard as it did when I was out. I battled with depression for about a year once I got out from the withdrawal from the drugs you all were just talking about. Was suicidal for a long time. But I'm over that now, and I'm trying to get the word out there. I also worked for a security company just recently, and this is to touch on another subject about the TSA outsourcing to private security companies. That just happened to the company that I worked for. I just quit yesterday. I told my boss outright that it was against my moral compass to do such a thing. Wow,
you're rare then, because most people just go along with the tyranny.
Absolutely not. No, I'm over it, man. I'm ready to take up arms, to be honest with you. And I hope there are a lot of other ex-soldiers out there just like me who are ready to do the same and fight for this country and for the ideals that the Founding Fathers tried to instill. But, I've also been witness. I was stationed at Fort Benning. I've been witness to these drills that y'all are talking about, the weapons confiscation drills. I've been witness to the land seizure drills where the terrorists, the so-called terrorists, quote-unquote, are men dressed in overalls with John Deere hats.
Right. You've seen it firsthand. It's a lot of good information. Let me ask for Ed's comments on what you're just saying there.
Well, I haven't had that firsthand experience in the military, but I know it goes on. And so the impact is on the young soldier that's being recruited, and he's being told that he's serving his country by learning how to do these things. He's impressed by that. He gets a paycheck, and if he does his job well, he gets a medal for his wearing his chest.
All right, we got to go to break here, Ed.
What else is there?
Stay with us, please. More continuing straight ahead here on the Alex Jones Show with Ed Griffin and calls of military and law enforcement with knowledge of gun confiscation. Stay with us.
PCN Radio Network.
If you're just joining us, this is Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, filling in for Alex today. Thanks for continuing with us. We've got G. Edward Griffin on the line from RealityZone.com, one of the top freedom fighters and liberty advocates in our world today. We've had callers who are active duty law enforcement and military giving us information about gun confiscation. We've got other callers on the line, but I want to ask Ed this question. There's an event coming up August 18. It's called Lemonade Freedom Day 2012. This is brand new. I don't think anyone's covered this yet. The website is lemonadefreedom.com, and this is an attempt to show that selling lemonade from your lemonade stand should not be a crime, as it is being increasingly considered by law enforcement all across the country. Ed Griffin, your thoughts on lemonade freedom?
Well, I like the idea. I like the fact that there's enough indignation out there at the grassroots level for people to even consider that. But, I have to say that putting yourself out there and saying, come arrest me for selling